Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2019 Justin and Tyler Movie Awards, and this is our Miscellaneous Awards section, where we will be giving a whopping not one, not two, but 8 total awards within the context of this one video. So sit back, grab your popcorn, let's get into our awards. And again, there's some classics in here, and a couple of awards you've never seen before, because we like to change it up. Through the magic of editing, we have pens now. So, we are going to kick things off with the 2 brand new awards that are brand new for 2019. We each chose an award that each of us get to give. So, I chose an award, we each have a selection for it. Tyler chose an award, we each have a selection for it.
So, since we're entering a new decade, I figured we could, do what everyone else has done and pick, the best movies of the decade. Although we're really only going to pick one. But, of course, there's going to be honorable mentions.
Because we have to talk more.
Yeah, because we always just gotta wuss out and pick multiple, but while saying that we're only picking one. So this is our movie of the decade. Okay, so my honorable mentions are Drive, Creed, and then this one, which would annoy a lot of people, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Wow!
Because I love that movie. I love it.
Oh, that's so good.
That would annoy so many people if people watch.
Yeah.
But there'd be a few people who'd be like, yeah.
That's going to make people mad, and that's good.
One of the best comic book movies ever made.
All right. I'm happy that we probably both have an honorable mention that's going to make people mad.
Drive is maybe the most beautiful movie of the decade.
Yeah.
Creed is the best Rocky movie of the decade, which makes it an amazing movie because even though Rocky's not the main character, I love Rocky. I love Rocky so much. And then Batman vs. Superman, I won't even get into it. I just think it gets crapped on.
Just because it makes people mad.
It's not that it's perfect.
Right.
So then my number 1 favorite movie of the decade is Spring Breakers.
Okay.
My boy Harmony Korine coming in with arguably the best movie he's ever made, which would also make it arguably my favorite movie. I always go with Gummo.
Right.
Because it's just kind of been my long-standing, what's your favorite movie? Gummo. Right. But Spring Breakers might be better. Ooh. And it's certainly more accessible. And more people will like it. And it's still got that creativity that he's known for. And it's still interesting. And James Franco gives a great performance. And it's funny. And there's just so much going for it that he doesn't, Korine doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. Kind of understandably, because he makes challenging movies for the most part. But Spring Breakers isn't that challenging. And one of my favorite moments in movie watching history is when I convinced my brother to go see Spring Breakers with me, because I've never seen a Korean movie in theaters, so I really wanted to go see it. And I thought he was going to come out of it and just be like, oh, I hated that garbage. But he came out and he loved it. We were going home being like, Spring Break.
Forever.
And and it's like, I got rooms of this shit, and just quoting James Franco and stuff. And Korine just paints these portraits of life. And I'm not saying there's deeper meanings to his movies so much, because he doesn't really go out of his way to make deeper meanings. They're kind of like slice of life things, although this one has slightly more of a plot than some of his other ones. But yeah, Spring Breakers is my favorite movie of the decade.
I think, was that not our consensus number 1 movie that year? Because I'm pretty sure Spring Breakers it might have been my number 1 movie of 2013. I can't remember.
I don't know if we did the movie awards.
Was that? Oh,
it might have been one of the years, but it would have been our consensus.
It would
have been my favorite. It was my favorite.
Wow.
Obviously.
That's awesome. That's a little bit out of left field. It shouldn't have been.
Really?
It shouldn't have been. But it's a little. I figured it would be in there somewhere, but I didn't know whether it would necessarily be. But I mean, even to say that it challenges Gummo for you is saying a lot.
I've thought about it, and I think they're just so different. Gummo's that what the hell did I just watch movie that I like to just show people, because whether they love it or they hate it, they don't forget it. And then Spring Breakers is actually a little more mainstream, and a lot of people have liked it that I've talked to.
Absolutely.
Which was nice to hear.
All right, so my honorable mentions for my movie of the decade, and again, when we talk about the decade, we're talking about the actual decade, which is 2010 to 2019. People on the internet, please shut up. So, 2010 to 2019 is our decade span, in case anyone was curious. My honorable mentions, which actually, he put Drive as one of his honorable mentions. That was one of my, last cutoffs when we were looking at, a top 3 in terms of an honorable mention. My honorable mentions are Cabin in the Woods.
That's not surprising.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I also have one that I think is going to annoy a lot of people on the internet. Star Wars The Force Awakens. Because, yes, it's good, you want it that way. That's probably my 3rd favorite Star Wars movie ever. And I include the Rogue One and the Solo and the offshoots of it all. My number 1 movie of this decade, you gotta go all the way back to the way back of the 2010 for Christopher Nolan's Inception, which is one of the, I think, only 10 or 11 movies that I've ever rated 100 out of 100. I would give it 101 if it would allow me, but it will not. From the first second I watched that movie, I was just enthralled with the way the story was told, the way the performances were given. I thought it was the best Ellen Page I've ever seen. I thought it was arguably the best Leonardo DiCaprio I've ever seen, and that obviously spans a lot more performances. And just, again, it was one of my introductions, I think, to Marion Cotillard, and I've absolutely adored her in basically everything else she's ever been in. And that's the movie from this past decade that sticks with me the most, and I find myself thinking about in weird, random times where it's just like, why am I still thinking about this movie that's 10 years old? Why? Because it's the best movie of the 2010s for this guy.
I gotta say something.
Okay.
I don't actually hate The Force Awakens. It's funny because if you went back to whatever year it was and you watched this movie awards, I actually think I had it in my top 5.
I'm pretty sure you did.
However, I've thought about it a lot since, and I'm like, I think I got way too caught up in the fact I was with a few friends. It was the new Star Wars. It was actually my first Star Wars I had seen in theaters because I wasn't even a Star Wars fan until that year when I decided I'd watch them. And then in terms of Inception, it's probably might be the 2nd best Nolan movie made. Because I would have chose The Dark Knight, but it was 2009 or 2008.
Oh, 2008, I believe it was.
Yeah. So the only movie that would have qualified was Dark Knight Rises, and I considered that on my list. But yeah, Inception is great. It's really great.
I love it.
Me too.
So now we move on to my award that I chose for the two of us, which was kind of similar to the one that I chose last year. Last year I chose story or premise that deserved a better movie. This year I took it down to the individuals, and I said the person or character, real or fake, that deserved a better movie in 2019. So my award for person or character that deserved a better movie in 2019 is Sharon Tate. The actress Sharon Tate, actual real-life person who was murdered by the Manson family for reasons. Because the Manson family didn't really need great reasons back at that time, if you know anything about the Manson family. And the reason that I picked Sharon Tate is Sharon Tate had 2 bad movies that featured her this year. And it was The Haunting of Sharon Tate, which is a movie that was literally just about Sharon Tate, with Hilary Duff, who played her, which was not a terrible casting choice, but it was just why would you do that? And then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which, I mean, look, great actress, obviously, that they chose to play her, but she didn't do anything. She had nothing to do in the whole movie. And it's just wow, they did Sharon Tate dirty twice this year. Now, in saying that, I will say this. In 2020, Sharon Tate is getting a biopic. So I think they're actually taking it seriously. So hopefully, my desire to see Sharon Tate get a better movie will actually bear itself out in 2020. So we shall see how that plays out, but Sharon Tate is my choice, given that she had 2 bad movies about her this year, for person or character that deserved a better movie.
Margot Robbie played her, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to think of who she played. You know, I kept seeing like best performances of the year and stuff, and she kept getting like nominated. I was like, she didn't do anything. How are you putting her in best performance?
Trust me, we'll talk about it.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah, jeez.
So my pick is a little similar to yours in kind of a weird way. Mine is actually Dark Phoenix and X-Men. Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
And it's similar only in the sense that Sharon Tate was Dark Phoenix. No, it's only similar in the sense that they have tried to make Dark Phoenix twice.
2 times.
So there's some similarities there, which wasn't planned.
Right.
I'm not going to pretend to know much about the actual comic book character because I read comics sometimes, but I'm, slightly above casual, but certainly not even close to hardcore. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that much. But from what I know, Dark Phoenix is a really good character that deserves a lot better than what she got in this movie, and also the one in, X3.
Yeah.
They just keep ruining Dark Phoenix.
I will say this. Sophie Turner stays great.
Yeah, she's fine.
She's excellent. But, god damn it. And this is what happens, and I don't want to get too deep into the woods in case we talk about this movie later. But, so they did X3, and they screwed up Dark Phoenix. And then they pegged the person who wrote X3 to write Dark Phoenix and direct it as if, we'll give them a second kick at the can. They couldn't possibly screw it up twice.
You need to build to Dark Phoenix, because Dark Phoenix is such a powerful character. This time wasn't as bad, I don't think, as the first time. So we guess he improved a lot.
I guess he got better.
But it's still just ruined Dark Phoenix. Just do it a third time, why not?
As it seems to be the case with comic book movies, just give it to Kevin Feige and they'll fix it.
And people will have faith, but the problem will be if they bring in Dark Phoenix, people will be like, oh my god, not
Here we go again. It's true. Yeah. And now we move on to our sort of what I'll call some carryover awards from previous years. And we're going to start with mine, which is an award that I debuted last year, and I liked it so much that I'm just going to stick with it for as long as we keep doing these. And that is Justin's I Don't Get It Award. And this is for a movie that I don't get it. I don't get why people love it. And last year I made you mad because I chose Hereditary.
Oh yeah, you did.
I did.
I wasn't mad anymore, but now I am.
But my award this year for I Don't Get It, honestly, I was having a hard time with it for quite a bit of the year. I had a couple of choices in there and I was just like, oh man, is this going to be good? I'm pretty sure I had Dark Phoenix in there at one point, and I was just like, man, I'm really struggling for a movie this year. And then people's top 10 lists of the year started to come out. And then the Golden Globe nominations came out. And then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood won for Best Picture.
Did they win? I didn't pay attention. It won Best Picture.
It won Best Picture musical or comedy. Which is, it's not really musical, and it wasn't really funny.
No, but yeah. Well, Brad Pitt was funny.
Brad Pitt was funny, sure, and that's the selling point of the movie. The selling point of the movie is watching Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt yuck it up for 2.5 hours. That's the selling point of the movie. It doesn't really have a story. It doesn't really have much of anything that happens, and yet it was landing on everybody's top 10 list, and it was landing on nominations for awards, and I'm sure it's gonna clean up at the Oscars. But the Hollywood Foreign Press loved Quentin this year, and I'm just nothing happens in this movie. It's 2.5 hours long, and it doesn't have to be this big, long Quentin Tarantino gore fest or this action-packed thing like he's done before. It doesn't have to be that, but it still has to be a movie. And I didn't feel like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood even qualified as a movie, and yet everybody seems to love it. So, congratulations, Quentin. I don't get it.
Yeah, I won't say much because I pretty much guarantee this is coming up at least one more time in these videos. So I don't want to say too much now, but I get that you don't get it.
Excellent. That's perfect. I love that. If we can do this award every year in the future, and you get to a point where you're like, I get why you don't get it, then I've done my job.
But part of me was kind of I hope you pick something that I'll disagree with, so that way we can have
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row. But no, I actually agree with this. All right, and now it's time to give the best award, which is the Castle Award 2019 for Best Bunny in a Movie. I've been given this for what, 3 years now?
I think this is your
it has to be 3 because I got him like 3 years ago almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my pick is Jojo Rabbit. I'm awarding this award this year on philosophical grounds. I mean, technically there are bunnies in this movie. I think there's 2. And then the main character gets the nickname Rabbit because he was too much of a coward to break a bunny's neck to like prove, his worth and stuff. And they're like, Jojo Rabbit, you're a coward, yada, 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 right? And then there was another bunny, I think, at some other point in the movie. So there's a point where the kid is, down on himself, feeling like he's a coward because he's not a good Nazi like the rest of them and stuff. And Hitler, of all people, says this line, I can't quote it, verbatim, but he says this line that has resonated with me and embodied bunnydom in general, is he said that rabbits aren't cowards because they know the dangers of the world, and yet they force themselves to face it because they have to eat. Because you think about it, right? And they're a prey animal, and they're pretty low.
Yep.
But they still go out, and they still got to get food, and that's bravery. And then that, kind of plays with Jojo Rabbit, because then he starts facing his own thing. So they both embody bunnydom, and I just like that, on philosophical grounds. And it kind of gave me a perspective on bunnies, not being cowards and whatnot, that I really liked. So that's why Jojo Rabbit gets the Castle Award this year.
I like it. Now we move on to what I affectionately term the Expectation Awards. And these are the awards for movies that we each expected more from and expected less from in 2019. To recap, if you've never watched the awards before, we each have 3 selections for each of these awards. 3 movies we expected more from, and 3 movies we expected less. So I'll kick things off with this award with the 3 movies that I expected more from in 2019. Those movies are the aforementioned X-Men Dark Phoenix, Good Boys, as well as my third one, Gemini Man. So Dark Phoenix, I think I'm still living in this world of First Class and Days of Future Past, where those movies were both really, really, really good, and I almost kind of had the blind spot for Apocalypse, which you and I both agree we didn't dislike as much as a lot of other people disliked, but still recognized how much of a significant downtick it was from the 2 that came before it. So I walked into Dark Phoenix, especially with how big of a Sophie Turner fan I am, and how much obviously I love James McAvoy, and I really like this universe, and I just went into it hoping against hope that Dark Phoenix would kind of bring it back around, with the knowledge that, this is probably their last kick at the can with X-Men movies before it gets handed over to Marvel and they get done really, 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 really well again. So I'm thinking, man, they gotta know this is probably their last kick at the can. They gotta knock it out of the park. And they just didn't. They gave me a movie that I enjoyed for who was in it and for the fact that I really enjoy the universe, but not exactly what I would call a movie that met the maybe unjustified expectations that I had, but still the expectations that I went in hoping for. So that's kind of where I sat with Dark Phoenix. Good Boys, I kind of expected, I'll be perfectly honest with Good Boys, I just expected to laugh more. That was really where I sat with Good Boys. I expected the movie to make me laugh more than it actually did. Now, it made me laugh. Don't get me wrong, it's a funny movie, but I think I went into it expecting that I was going to get a movie that didn't have all or virtually 95% of all the funny stuff in the trailer, and that was just kind of what I felt the movie was, that the really funny stuff they gave to us right away to get us into the theater, and then everything else that the movie is really just didn't quite give me enough to meet what I expected and hoped for out of that comedy. And then Gemini Man, when I first saw the trailer for Gemini Man, I was like, I'm on board. I'm so on board with this. Will Smith, Ang Lee, I really think this is going to be something special that's going to wind up in my top 30 and kind of maybe be one of the surprises of the year. And when it got to about the not even the halfway point of the movie, and the CGI budget just totally pooped its pants. I was like, oh no, oh Aang, no, Aang, please no. And I was like, oh yeah, darn. And I'm like, I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead so much, and I'm like, I really wanted her to be in a better movie. Not even just no, like, and I like Will Smith, but I'm just like, please put Mary Elizabeth Winstead in better movies. And it, again, fine. But I went into it expecting it to be one of the surprises of the year, and it was, but not necessarily for the right reasons. So that is why Dark Phoenix, Good Boys, and Gemini Man are my 3 movies that I expected more from in 2019.
I agree with Dark Phoenix. I liked Good Boys more than you did, and I didn't get to see Gemini Man. I meant to. I heard it was crap. I was like, yeah, I don't want to watch.
Yeah.
And I don't have the same love for Ang Lee as some people have, mostly because I haven't seen a lot of his movies.
Okay.
So I don't, Ang Lee's not a selling point right now. He might be in the future once I actually watch some of his older movies, but as of now, I'm pretty sure I only saw his Hulk movie, and that might be it.
Okay.
I don't remember what else he's done, and I didn't like it, so the thing about my expected more list is that this year I expected more from a lot of movies. And generally, I kind of agree with critical opinions on stuff. So there's a lot of foreign movies and stuff in this one that I thought I'd really love, and I didn't hate any of them. Right. I rated them all at least a 6, up to maybe a 7.5. So I didn't hate any of these movies, but I expected so much from them. Literally, my list was 14 movies, which is huge. And my other expectation awards don't have that at all. So I managed to get it down to 3. So my number 3 is Long Day's Journey into Night. Number 2, Knives Out. Number 1, Ash's Purest White. So Long Day's Journey into Night was critically well received, especially for the way it was shot. Mm-hmm. And I can see that, but I feel like it might have been to its detriment because it ended up being really slow, and I just wasn't into it. And I really thought I thought that would be easily a top 10 of the year, and it just wasn't. Knives Out, I like Johnson's non-Star Wars movie a lot. I'm always, every time he gets mentioned, I talk about Brick, because Brick is awesome. Yes. And then he did what? Looper. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And Looper was awesome. And The Last Jedi wasn't a bad movie, it just wasn't a great Star Wars movie. So, I like him, but the problem is now he's losing me somehow. I went from really loving Brick and Looper to Last Jedi's good, and then this is also good. And I really thought I would love Knives Out. It was once I heard about it, it was one of my most anticipated movies, and it's a good movie. And it had some really good stuff about it, but I just expected more from it. Mm-hmm. And then Ash's Purest White is another foreign movie that I was really excited for. It's like a crime movie, drama, romance, getting a lot of acclaim. Again, I just thought it would be my jam because I love criminal underworld things and good performances and all that stuff. And it just came down to it. I was like, it's fine.
Right.
It's fine, and it even has a cool title. I like the title.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't as into it as I would have liked to be. So I kind of pooped on foreign cinema a little bit this year, more than I normally would.
What an Americentric.
I know. I've become just terrible.
The only one of those movies that I saw is Knives Out, and I can understand because it's such a very is unconventional too pretentious of a word to use? Maybe it is. I don't know. It's such an unconventional whodunit because, spoilers, it reveals whodunit about halfway through the movie. And then you got another whole half of the movie left.
Yeah, I think that's what I don't love.
And I totally understand that because you go in kind of expecting a whodunit and then you're like, oh, okay, they done it. Right? Yeah. Now, I think I have a higher opinion of that movie than you do just because I gave myself sort of to the magnetism of the cast. and just kind of let that kind of run me through it. But just as a strict, like a whodunit formula, I totally get why this would land on a list like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This will come up again, and I'll have more to say.
Right.
I'm just trying to keep it to why I expect more. It's basically just because I always expect more from Johnson movies, but now I'm getting to the point where I no longer am.
Now you kind of got to...
Like, I'm still hoping for it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like Nolan. I mean, mind you, I'm excited for his new movie, but, like, I loved Nolan, and then I didn't love Interstellar, and I didn't love Dunkirk, so now he's kind of like... He hasn't lost me by any means, because it's still Nolan, but I'm kind of just like, alright.
It's like, alright,
You know, I'm still going to see it, whatever he makes, because Johnson is an exciting director doing neat things in pretty much every movie, but just didn't land with me this time.
So now that we've talked about ourselves and our expectations, let's continue to talk about ourselves and our expectations and flip to the other side of the coin. These are the 3 movies for each of us that we expected less from in 2019, and I think I'm going to let Tyler kick it off this time because I kicked off the last one.
So here we go. Number 3 is The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Number 2 is Light of My Life. And number 1 is Cold Pursuit.
Okay.
So Last Black Man in San Francisco, I knew nothing about it. That's why I expected less. I just thought it was going to be maybe like just a normal drama, and it was actually a lot more creative and interesting than I expected. Light of My Life, I didn't really expect much going into it. However, once I turned it on, in the first like 10 minutes was just atrocious, and I was like, oh, here we go.
Oh, boy.
But it ended up redeeming itself quite a bit, and I ended up enjoying it.
Okay.
And then Cold Pursuit, you know, a Liam Neeson joint at the beginning of the year, thinking it's just going to be another ho-hum, you know, start to the year. But I think we saw it together.
We did.
And we ended up both finding it a lot funnier.
Yeah.
They didn't play it straight. It was really unexpected how much I enjoyed it. I don't love it by any means, but it was really funny and wasn't afraid to offend people or anything like that.
Right. It felt like a Liam Neeson joint making fun of Liam Neeson joints.
It was not politically correct, had some really risque jokes in there and stuff. It was quite good.
Absolutely. So my 3 choices for movies that I expected less from in 2019 are Jumanji: The Next Level, Long Shot, and Hustlers. So Jumanji: The Next Level especially is one where I'm like, okay, this is the one. This is the one where The Rock is going to suck. This is the one that is going to be not funny, not enjoyable. This is the one where it's going to fall off the rails. Because not only is it like, even the first Jumanji movie was just like, oh God, is this going to be... Like, what is this going to be?
And it was quite entertaining.
And it was quite... The first one was quite good, and I'm like, there's no way the sequel is as good. And arguably the sequel is better. So I was like, this movie has no right to be as good as it is, kind of thing. Long Shot, I really expected to be like a B-tier... Like, just a B-tier comedy with people that I like, but still, like, not something that would reach, like... Some of the ones like Date Night or like those kinds of movies that I really, really enjoy within the comedy genre. I just expected it to be kind of middle of the road. I can put it to you this way. Long Shot, I expected Long Shot to be what Good Boys was. Yeah. And I expected Good Boys to be what Long Shot was. So they just kind of swapped places. And Long Shot, I thought, was tremendously enjoyable. And Hustlers, I had no expectations for the Jennifer Lopez stripper movie. I really didn't. I just thought, like, okay, I'll probably see some breasts, and there might be a story to this. And I'm like, wow, Jennifer Lopez is really, really good in this, and I'm actually invested in what is happening in this stripper community, which I never thought I would ever be invested in.
I'm gonna say something about Hustlers, and you can cut this if you want. But you said boobs of consequence about this movie. There was no boobs of consequence, and that has stuck with me ever since. Like when I finally watched it, I was like, he's right. There were no boobs of consequence. I feel like that's how we should rate movies from now on, whether there was boobs of consequence or not. And I didn't even hate the movie. That stuck with me when you said it. I liked the term.
Boobs of consequence. And now we close the miscellaneous portion of the awards with the single movie for each of us that we can't believe we loved and can't believe we hated. So let's start on the positive side of the coin with the movie that each of us can't believe we loved. My movie for 2019 that I can't believe I loved was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And the reason that this winds up in this particular award is I thought for sure that after Won't You Be My Neighbor,
which is excellent, one of my favorite movies of last year,
I felt like, okay, there's got to be some Mr. Rogers fatigue, which seems like such a weird thing to say, but I'm like, back-to-back years with a Mr. Rogers movie, and this one obviously very much a dramatization. And it's it was no criticism of Tom Hanks. I thought that was the absolute perfect casting.
That is good. That's good casting.
And like even going into the movie, I thought that's going to be the perfect casting for Mr. Rogers. Like that's going to be excellent. But it was just like I don't know what else this movie is going to show me that Won't You Be My Neighbor didn't already show me. But the reason that I fell in love with this movie so instantly is within about 10 minutes, I was like, I don't care. This doesn't have to show me anything new. It doesn't have to show me anything that Won't You Be My Neighbor didn't already show me. What it showed me was it re-showed me and it reintroduced me to this incredible man and this incredible life philosophy and this incredible thing that they were doing with this show that I so took for granted even when I was a kid. I so instantly fell in love with not only Tom Hanks, but just everything about this movie. Like, it just felt like it felt like a warm cup of tea. Like, it just felt like sliding into a warm bath. Like, I'm just happy that I'm here, and I feel good. I'm just very happy with this movie, and I so instantly fell in love with the thing. It's very, very, very well directed. I believe Marielle Heller was the director, and it's very well done and well put together in that sense. So A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is the movie that I can't believe I loved from 2019.
Yeah, I never ended up watching it because I feel like I got everything I wanted from Won't You Be My Neighbor. Mm-hmm. And because there's no real drama. Well, there's drama in his life in a sense, but not that he's really doing too much, you know. So I never ended up watching it. I'm sure I would have really liked it had I seen it, but I watched the documentary last year, and I was like, I'm good. You know, I felt so good watching the documentary. I probably would have felt good watching this too, but I just didn't feel like I needed it, so I didn't watch it. So my pick is actually kind of lame, but it's Marriage Story.
Ooh, okay.
I had a bit of a hard time with this one and the Can't Believe I Hated. I'm not actually that surprised that I love this. But I'm a little surprised because I figured maybe I'd like it. I only really went into it because I heard the performances were great and there's a lot of talent involved and stuff. So that's why I wasn't really that surprised. But I am surprised that I actually ended up loving it. Because I was really invested in this and I didn't love the premise. It's just a marriage falling apart, which, you know, can be done really well and has been done really well and will continue to be done really well. But it's not a premise that makes me go, I need to see that marriage falling apart.
Right.
But it had such good talent and heard such good things that I ended up having to see it, and I ended up really loving it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of how I ended up loving Before Midnight. I know it was. I didn't even realize that was like the third in the trilogy. I just saw Before Midnight. I haven't actually seen the first two, and I just went in, and like the chemistry was so good, and it was so enthralling watching this couple and stuff just go through life. And that's what it reminded me of a little bit. Okay. Not as good as Before Midnight, but really, really good and definitely deserving of its accolades. So
plus, it had my boyfriend and my girlfriend, Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, it had both.
And it's time now for the final award. We can't believe we hated this movie, or I can't believe I hated this movie, and we each get one.
I can't believe you hated this movie.
I can't believe I hated this movie either. So I think I will let Tyler start because we gotta end on my note. So we're gonna have Tyler do it first.
So my pick for I Can't Believe I Hated is The Kid Who Would Be King.
Ooh.
Now this is another weird one because I don't technically hate it. There was no movies that I hated that I couldn't believe I hated. Right. But I gave this a 5 out of 10, which means literally not literally, I used literally wrong because it's not actually on the fence, but it's on the fence. 5 out of 10 is that I'm too much of a wuss to pick either way rating, right? I didn't hate it, I didn't like it, but that's all I could come up with. And the reason is, this dude directed and maybe wrote, I can't remember if he wrote or not, but Attack the Block, which is fantastic.
No.
And
really?
and this is like a similar premise in a sense that it's teens getting up to some stuff that they have no business getting up to.
Teen hijinks.
Yeah, but now mind you, this is aimed more towards children than Attack the Block was, and maybe he's just not meant to make kids movies. And because I think he even co-wrote Ant-Man, which was funny. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. Like, dude's a talented writer, and I wasn't really that into it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either. Like I said, so yeah, The Kid Who Would Be King is the I can't believe I hated.
I didn't wind up seeing it. I didn't really have much of an interest in seeing it, but I probably would have sought it out had I known it was the
That's
Attack
why
the Block
I cared. I was like, oh, Attack the Block guy. I can't remember the dude's name now.
Attack the Block. That doesn't matter. He's Attack the Block guy now.
People should see Attack the Block.
Yeah, go see Attack. Don't watch that movie. Go watch Attack the Block when that guy was good. And now, my selection for I Can't Believe I Hated This Movie in 2019 probably shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody because I've talked about it multiple times. It's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I can't believe I hated it because it's Quentin. I don't hate Quentin. I don't want to hate Quentin.
No one wants to hate Quentin except for the people who hate Quentin.
Exactly. No one should want to hate Quentin except like the very dedicated Quentin haters and they're turds.
Yeah.
But like, this is not a movie. This is why I hate this movie because it's not a movie at all. It's 150 minutes or whatever it winds up being.
150, too long.
Exactly, 150 minutes of virtually nothing happening. And there's a director's cut that's even longer.
No.
It adds like 15 more minutes to the movie. 15 more minutes of nothingness happening.
No.
To make it literally like 165 minutes of nothing happening. And I'm sorry, Quentin, I love you. I just hate this movie. So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the movie I can't believe I hated because I went into it expecting to at least like it, and it just didn't happen.
You know why I didn't pick that? Because that was the other one I was considering.
Right.
I wasn't super invested in it from the trailers or the premise or anything, and the only reason I would have skipped it entirely if it wasn't Tarantino.
Right.
So that's really the only reason we didn't have a consensus on that, because I thought, well, it's Tarantino, and I really like Tarantino for the most part, except for Death Proof. Fuck that movie.
You know what, Quentin? This piece of paper right here has had your bad movie's name on it a number of times. So this is what I'm doing with it.
Oh, dang.
It almost came down in front of the camera. That would have been perfect.
That would have been perfect.
And with that, folks, we close the miscellaneous portion of the 2019 Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. Thank you very much for watching, and come on back because the next video you're going to watch are our best actors, actresses, and directors of 2019. We'll see you there.